So, it's really great to see the room is filling up, and I expect there'll be a few more people. This is the second time we've done this, and it's a brilliant opportunity both for you guys to hear from people that you don't know. Some of you may have remembered Bella, because she's only just graduated. But I'm sure you don't know Robbie, you don't know Heather. And they're alumni, and they're going to give a little bit of a talk about when they finished and the sort of things they've been doing. But this is a brilliant opportunity for you to hear the way that they've navigated leaving university and finding a way into, I don't think career, but I think it's more using your degree of, the things that you've learned, the creative industries that you're still engaged with, and maybe some of the challenges, but also the reason why you've stuck with it. So that will be really brilliant for you to hear and give you a sense of what's out there, perhaps some of the good and some of the bad, which is great. I think it's a real privilege because all three people have come in to offer their time to give you a chance to hear their experiences. When we've talked through some of the processes and I've asked a few questions, there's going to be enough time for you to ask questions as well. And I think it's worth, as you listen to both Helen, Robbie and Bella about what they're doing and how they've worked through and navigated their situation, there might be some specific questions that you could ask. And remember that the questions you ask probably relate to everybody else in the room as well. So it would be really good to hear from you and get a sense of that. So I think we can get started. The most important thing, I think, is can we give a quick round of applause to you three? And we've got a microphone here, so they can hear your voice. But what we'll do is we'll go through some questions, and then perhaps rather than 5 minutes, we'll just get each of you to answer questions and get a sense of what it is. And you've seen what these are, right? So that's good. Great. So, I'll sit down now. I need to remind you that we're being recorded. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Hopefully you're all okay with that. And this will get put online, so we'll get a recording of this. So if you want to go back and hear some of the aspects of what we've been talking about, but also we can pass it on to people that weren't here as well. So that's really great. So I think we can get straight into the questions, really, unless anybody can think of anything else I need to say. There's some quite cool questions that we want to find out about in reference to where you've come from. It might be quite good to start with, just to get a quick bit of a dialogue, for a minute or 2 minutes about where you are and what you're doing. So could I ask you to do that? I don't know. Maybe it would be good for Robbie to start, if that's all right.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. There we are. Alright, nice to meet you guys. I'm Robbie Lowell and I'm an artist from Birmingham. My main mediums are, it's going to be weird to hear your feedback, isn't it? Hello. My main mediums are textiles, painting, sculpture, then also video and events. So they're the things I did mainly in the degree, and I've kind of done them out of the degree too. So with like community events, workshops, exhibitions, but then also like creating videos for people, and also still doing like sculptural environments, but maybe at festivals or in a range of different places. Also making and creating things, not just for my own practice, but for others. So actually, on the course, I actually have quite an interest in television, as in like how we went from like, getting the information from newspapers, then the television, now we've got TVs in our pockets with social media and phones. So in the last 2 years, I've actually been working in TV and film, in the art department, props, costume, production, etc. And yeah, I suppose that's what I've been doing since the uni. Quick one.
Can tell them quickly what year you graduated?
2018.
Same as Helen.
Same time, yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Robbie.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen Farley. I graduated in the same year as Robbie. At the moment I work as an events coordinator at Rainbows Children's Hospice, which is based in the East Midlands. So we put together fundraising events, community events to fundraise. But my area of interest is in creative arts. So my background has also been working with Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, delivering workshops, and Horatio's Garden, which is a spinal injuries charity, so putting together workshops for them, and also Lime Arts, which is based and connected with Manchester NHS. So yeah, putting together workshops and organising events.
Hello everyone, my name is Isabella, but you can all call me Bella. I graduated about 3 weeks ago. Okay, what do I do? So my main kind of job, I guess the title would be freelancer. I work mainly as a lighting technician or a photographer's assistant on editorial and commercial photo shoots. So I work with clothing brands or TV companies. There's a range of different clients. Outside of that, on the course, my work did have to do with lighting for the final year work. I ended up doing animations that were paintings, so they only turned into kind of 3-frame GIFs in different coloured lights. And on the side, I work with Gumsbury Park Museum. If anyone's local to West London, you might know about it. We are part of Young Curators. The name has changed over the years from Youth Forum to Youth Collective. And we co-curate exhibitions, we do creative workshops with local youth, and we get to learn about the behind the scenes of museums and that sort of work. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I mean, that gives a really clear kind of idea of the diversity of what all three of you are doing. There's a few sort of key questions that came up. I'll go into those. One of the ones I'm wondering about, right from the very start actually, is we'll go back a little bit to what it was like when you were at uni and making those choices. But right now, in terms of your careers, Robbie, you kind of talked about freelance.
Yeah.
Bella's talked about freelance. Would you say that part of your way of working has been freelance as well?
Definitely.
Yeah, so there's a kind of direct link in terms of freelance. So I wondered if you could talk about how you maintained a process of being able to work in a freelance way, but with the realism of having to earn some money on a regular basis at the same time. And with that question as well, I'm also interested to know why you've located yourself in the areas of the country that you have. Robbie, you're still in London?
So I'm in Birmingham, but I've kind of I work a lot in London.
Right, so
it's
that,
a bit of a hybrid.
I think that's kind of interesting to think about as well, because everybody here has got lots of different relationships with other parts of the world and other parts of this country, and they might be thinking about how they make that work after studying in London as well. So is it okay if we kind of, the question really is about how you make it work as a freelancer, and you know why you chose to locate yourself in like 2 places in 1 place. So I don't know what's to start with that question.
I think doing more than one thing is really useful, because it all helps other things. Doing community arts workshops, planning, organising, setting up, getting a budget for materials, all these skills you use in one job will actually become really useful when you go to another, say if you work in TV or film. They all work, and I think the truth of things is that freelance art careers, it's not an easy process. Like, you have to kind of work at it, you kind of have to do a bit of juggling, you've got to think outside the box. And I think having multiple strains of income is really important. That's how I kind of balance things of just being able to have like backup things when things aren't very busy. I suppose in terms of location, it's been quite good in Birmingham because we've had a lot of like TV studios opening there recently, bringing loads of shows and dramas into that region. A kind of the benefit of that is it's still not hard to commute to London. I mean, sometimes you're in London, it takes you an hour and a half to get to somewhere else in London as well, so it actually hasn't been that much of a difference. I'd say an important thing in terms of what you guys have as well, because you mentioned about sustaining jobs in the creative industry, I'd say the main thing has been the connections that you make and who you talk to and who you meet. It's been quite useful for me that when I've been doing jobs in London, I mean, sometimes I get put up in a hotel, but if they don't have the budget for that, I'll be staying with mates that I made on this course when I was studying. And so the friends and people that you meet are really important because, you know, if you use that, you might be somewhere else, it's somewhere to crash, or, you know, it really comes in useful, so keep the connections.
Yeah, very true. I initially started off as a teaching assistant while I was building up my freelance career. So that was really great, and it had also meant that I could get a DBS check, which then means that you can work with children, which then led into me facilitating workshops. So I'd already kind of then had some of the documentation to then go to someone and say, like, I can take on some freelance work. I did also volunteer for paintings in hospitals, which just while I was sort of building myself up freelance-wise, that was a great way to set up exhibitions, but it was in along the corridor in University College Hospital, and looking after their art collection there. So it gave me that experience while I was a teaching assistant and building myself up in the arts. So yeah, varied.
My experience is quite typical to like kind of creative job like CV. So I started off in hospitality, like the classic crunching in hours in between my studio hours. And I was working in Westfield as a barista. I bumped into someone who was a musician and really wanted to find someone who could make the cover art. So first year of uni was pretty much me just becoming friends with musicians that were also in first year, didn't know anyone to do their cover art, and I just got Photoshop for free, which I think you will still have under the Creative Cloud. Basically just used everything that we could have here to kind of gain some skills that I could pitch to someone else that I would like to do. So you don't have to do something that seems boring to you. You probably won't try as hard at those things. So I became friends with this person, started doing art direction, because I googled one day what can a fine art degree kind of give you. Because it's quite broad. You can do the kind of museum stuff, you can do the more kind of philosophical art direction, critic, that type of thing. I didn't really know, so I just kind of did everything that sounded like something I wanted to do. So we did that for about a year. Nothing was exactly paid, but I also had a scholarship I applied for before the university degree, and that kind of helped me fill in the gap for when I couldn't work for a weekend every couple weeks, and I still needed to pay my rent. So that was kind of a real thing. The kind of needing to make money was always really necessary because I lived by myself. I needed to pay my bills. I needed to have a phone. So after that, I also spent a lot of time at music gigs to meet more musicians. So after the chain smoking, I met quite a few people that also needed a photographer. And they didn't really mind someone who was learning or just willing to do something with their skills. So I did that, met more people, and eventually I think I made the decision that anything that I wanted to do would be a trade-off between making money right now and paying my rent, or kind of being a bit broke for a while and making more money later on. So kind of learning all the skills that having a university degree right now allows me to get. So going into a photography studio, finding someone who wants an assistant and just kind of grafting at that, or using the print studios, using the editing software that we have, and basically being really frustrated that I wasn't somewhere that could pay me a lot of money and that I had to be broke and maybe just have a bit of a less nicer pasta for dinner, but pay for all my trains and go to all the shoots I wanted to go to. And I did that for about 1.5 years. So in second year, when we needed to do our professional development module, I was doing all of these things, hardly sleeping. I had a lot of medical issues at the time. So I think leaning into the work helped me. A lot of people aren't like that, so don't beat yourself up if you're not awake until 4 a.m. and editing on Photoshop. But through that I made a lot of connections, and I kind of just reminded people I was still willing to do the work, even if they couldn't pay me £250 a day for it. And slowly I started getting more opportunities, like that commitment that I had to the people that were willing to give me opportunities. They started getting better opportunities that were paid. So maybe they could start at £50 a day, which isn't a lot, and in fact it's way below minimum wage. But then that kind of works up to bigger clients, and some people in my industry get paid over £500 a day for 1 day of work. So I think it was more of the mentality of the stability comes later. Like it was an understanding of like the amount of time that it takes. I still work in a cafe, even though I worked with people like Birkenstock, and like it's the reality of being a creative is kind of a work in progress forever. Like that stability is it's not really ever guaranteed, but the one thing that kind of does remain the same is that like work ethic. So that's kind of how I've navigated that money aspect, yeah.
That's great. I think one of the things that comes out of that was the question that we had here around, what was it at the university really that helped you figure out your career path? And if you're thinking about that, would there be things that you would do differently? I mean, Bella, in a way, you figured it out as you were going along, and because you're so recently graduated, a lot of your experience have come from, I wouldn't say identifying a career, but finding the things that you love doing, what you'd be interested in, and then pursuing that while you were still here. And that's taken you to the point where you are now, where there are those opportunities to get £500 a day. Not every day. That would be nice. You wouldn't be sitting here if you But I wondered with Helen and Robbie whether or not there were things about, if you can think back that far, when you were at uni, whether there were things that really helped you figure out what you wanted to do when you were here, or if it was all just a bit of a blank when you left, or what would you say?
I think the truth is no one completely 100% knows exactly what they want to do. It's a constant, evolving thing. And that's the beautiful thing, actually, when you let go of, I have to pick, this is the box and this is what I'm going to do, it becomes a lot calmer and more freeing. Because if you're just doing something that you enjoy, it will lead to something else if you just believe it. I probably actually wasted a lot of time overthinking what I want to do and thinking, wow, is this right, is that right? Whereas if I put more energy into just going for stuff, which I did do, but I'm just thinking about where my brain was when I was there, and I was probably a little bit too overthinking. Sometimes just acting and doing will just lead to more and more things. There was an example actually, I've forgotten the woman's name, but does anyone know that Rihanna Vogue cover where she's got the writing over her face? Because it's something like that, okay. So the makeup artist in that is actually she did a fine art degree as well, and she wasn't sure what to do after a degree, and she just started doing like makeup at kids' parties. And she started in one mum went to another mum and she was doing all the makeup, all these kids' parties. And then through that she met people who then led to where she was going to be. And I was reading this whole story, I was like, that's so interesting. She just did something that seemed completely random, that seemed like it wasn't connected, but then actually, you know, it can lead to like a domino effect. And a lot of the times, that's kind of what's happened to me. I've, you know, not been in a situation where I'm meaning particularly, you know, I'm not going to start out thinking, oh, I want to jump in TV, or I want to work in costume or styling, but then, you know, I put myself into environments and just being like, actually, you know, I could do that, and then, you know, just come for it, having like confidence in it, and just, think outside the box with things, and I think in the question it also says anything that you did do which did lead to stuff. And I suppose in terms of the facilities you have here, it's really useful to know these things, like stuff you learn at the 3D workshops, stuff you learn with like cameras. You've got so many, you know, things at your fingertips that is really useful to like, learn as much as you can now, because it will probably become useful in ways you don't expect later on. So using all of that is really good. And also tutors that are like, you know, gonna guide and help you do crazy ideas. I remember with Peggy before, being like, I want to do a video out the window. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go and get a piece of fabric and we're gonna do the video out the window. And like, you know, just go and do weird, wacky stuff now, you know, while you're in this environment. Because it's the time to do it when you've got the support and that.
Definitely. And yeah, I agree. I gained a lot of my confidence at uni, even if it's just, you might get some no's, but to put yourself out there. And actually a lot of some of the volunteering work that I did, I then asked, do you then have any freelance work? So it's then just sort of putting yourself out there. Also through events and the exhibitions, like events is what I do now, and that's what I'm really passionate about. So I think what I always enjoyed at uni as well was setting up exhibitions, working together as a community and a collective, and even the auctions and like putting yourself out there. So yeah, that's definitely what I really enjoyed and what sort of reflects back now. Even just thinking about the work that I do helping other people make art. So at uni I was also really interested in the process of making as opposed to the outcome, and now I help people to sort of find their own art process through whether they're a patient in a hospital or things like that, so as a form of distraction. And I was even thinking a little bit about my dissertation the other day, and all about like chance and failure and stuff like that, and then that's exactly what I brought into my career now. Like I incorporate those elements in, so even reflecting back. Something that I do differently is definitely making even more use of the facilities. I absolutely loved using the workshop, and that does become, when you sort of leave this space, finding a maker space or things like that in the location that you're in might be a little bit trickier. So just making the most of all of the facilities that you can use here, definitely.
Great, thank you. So leading on from that, I'm thinking about, I mean, it's nice because in a way you've talked a bit about, what your process was when at university. I was thinking about Helen, you had a direct kind of relationship actually with community work when you were at uni. Robbie is painting and decorators.
Yeah.
You were doing that when you were at university. So
We still do that now and again.
of course you do.
Yeah.
But so, and Bella's talking also about, that process of actually being at university and some of the things that led you by chance. So there's a lot of conversations that we're having about sort of chance, and I wondered if you could follow up a little bit on that idea of saying yes to things, because something that Robbie mentioned, which I think is quite interesting, is that you talked about you just had to not overthink it
Yeah.
and go for it. I mean, have you found, and Bella, is that something that's become quite clear to you? I think there's also another interesting question when you get to a certain point where you can actually start to say no to things, like when you're not getting paid or when things aren't going in the direction you want to. Is there a way of talking about that, saying yes, and when you get to a point where you start saying no?
That is a really good question, and I think that's kind of like a negotiation that you always make with yourself when it comes to work. Ideally, in the creative world, like everyone would get paid fairly, and we'd all be like almost comfortably rich, but that's not really the case, especially when starting off. And I think a lot of people get stuck on this idea of like where you should be in order to get paid appropriately for certain things. I think it's good to say yes to things when you're starting off and when you don't actually know what the job looks like. So a lot of me starting off with lighting and assisting in photography was just being happy to be there because I didn't actually know how to do anything. And a lot of the payment from doing that was the knowledge and the skills. I think everyone has a different time frame and threshold for how long they can do that for. And maybe it's not doing 5 days a week, that's completely for free, and maybe just selecting the projects that are most relevant to you and what you need to learn, then saying yes to everything. Sorry, I feel like there's so much feedback. Or should I be holding?
I did maybe a little bit, yeah, in that direction. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, sorry. But when it comes to the point to say no, I think one of the main things to consider is the kind of main necessities and priorities that you have. Especially if you're studying at the same time, there are certain deadlines that you don't actually want to miss. For me, it was the trade-off of, I know I can stay in the studio until I get kicked out at 10 p.m. for a few days a week, and I know that I can get the work done, but I think it's worth being honest with yourself when it comes to certain projects and modules. Another thing to consider is if you can actually pay rent and you can get yourself food. It's not worth getting yourself to have a job that you can't fulfill if you're sick or unwell. So I think for me it was really just kind of balancing those kind of questions and those needs. I'm happy to admit that I've had a lot of months where I've not been able to pay my rent, and I've actually been happy to just have done the work instead and gotten those opportunities. And then there's been other times where I've regretted it and been like, no, I should have put my foot down. I shouldn't be doing work for free for like 10 hours a day. And now it's kind of more of a question of what interests me. So I've started getting into set design, which I'm not very experienced in. Kind of a cardboard prop connoisseur at the moment, which is very random, but it's a learning curve. And sometimes I'll say yes if I have the time for it, and other times I'll say no.
I think saying yes definitely does give you some like variety of different perspectives and things like that as well. Like I briefly chatted about some of the voluntary work that I did while I was a teaching assistant. Quite like all of the freelance work that I then got was through people recommending me because I showed up, I did a good job, and then the yeses sort of sprung board from there. In terms of the no's, I think when I then sort of started to take on either part-time or full-time work to sort of try and make enough to then sort of do art and things like that on the side, then it's a case of just balancing your commitments, and that can be a bit of a juggle, because often some of the circles that you're in are smaller than you think. So if you go to like different networking events and things like that, sort of having a good reputation and sort of leading into those bits is important to try and upkeep. So even if you're just like, actually I just need a few months where I'm not taking on this voluntary bit or additional work, then but like keeping up rapport with your contacts, so that in a couple of years time when you're like, I might need some work for this month, you can reach out and say, do you remember when I did a good job a few years ago?
Yeah, I think because it's so competitive in the creative industries, unless you have a contact or a connection, which not everyone has, you can have to do some voluntary stuff. So probably now's a good time, you're in London, go for it. Every voluntary thing I've done has led to something that is worthwhile. I've never looked back and thought I shouldn't have done that. It's always led to something positive. But I would say that in terms of bridging that gap between saying yes and saying no to things, if you want to be in a position to be able to say no or say, this is my rate, or even, this is more, it's a funny one to navigate, because working in the community arts sector is a little bit simpler, because they've kind of got a set budget. You can kind of work around things. It's not as intense as maybe like photography or film, TV, where it's like intense with competition, and it's maybe a bit different. So in that realm, I think a really useful thing is to have some sort of niche that kind of separates you from other people, because then you can be in a position to be like, well, actually, I have this plus this and this and this. It's going to save and help you out having me. So having that niche is really important, because also when I was at uni, I remember thinking I've got an image and this, which that is it all relevant? Should I, which direction should I be going in? But I actually realised that having that interest in a range of things is really useful, because people more and more want to have people that can do multiple things, not just one. So broadening your skill set, getting a niche as well. Just think of something that you really enjoy doing and go from there. I think niche skill set will help for the yes and the no's.
Very good, thank you. I know that I've gone off the questions a bit, and I can see Helen's written some notes, which is very good. So I want to give you a chance to kind of answer some of the things that we had here. One of the key bits of the question was, when you were at university, were there things in particular that you feel were helpful? We've talked about workshops, and it's been great to hear you say, get out there and use it all. We've got fantastic film studios, camera equipment, all of that sort of thing. But were there things that kind of maybe key moments, or things that were said to you, maybe moments of hearing a guest speaker that made you think differently?
I just realised a really important one. Maria still here, isn't she? Yeah, okay. So I remember there was a point in, I can't remember, I think it was in first year, I was just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know probably anything that I'm doing, I don't know why I'm doing anything. And then she just went to me, probably a really interesting person. A lot of art is about stuff made by people that people have an interest of. Don't overthink it, just whatever you're going to make, people will probably be kind of interested in, because, you're interested in. So that kind of made me think about things a lot different. So I was like, okay, just don't overthink how or why. I keep saying don't overthink. It is the mantra, but that was something that really clicked into my head and kind of made me think, okay, just keep it there. That was really useful.
Thank you.
I think for the professional practice module, it was really useful just testing a complete variety of things and knowing that not necessarily you're going to relate to everything that you then have a go at. For example, I always thought that I'd really love to work in an art gallery. And then I worked there for 3 months and realised that it wasn't necessarily the environment that I kind of wanted to be in. But I was able to test it through that. Also, I really loved just being in the studios and also having the discussions around everybody's work where you then go and chat, and that just opens up so many communications. Have you heard about this private view that's happening? And then these are the networks that you'll then carry through onwards. So, yeah.
It's kind of difficult for me to decide, and it doesn't really make sense because I just graduated now. I think kind of all of it was useful for me, but it wouldn't have been if I didn't show up. Like, there were a lot of moments in first and second year that I look back at being like, why wasn't I at that lecture? Like, why didn't I even show up online? So I think showing up is kind of the best thing you can do when it comes to either your career or just your university degree, if that's what you want to focus on right now. And talking to the tutors about what I'm doing. Like, even when you're not in, you're never going to get in trouble for not coming in, like, they're not your parent. But if you tell them that you're doing things that you're interested in, like, sorry, excuse me, I've gotten a lot of work through Peter, the Vice Chancellor at university. I actually only met him after the degree show. I just saw him walking around. I was like, oh, hey. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're... And I was like, you know who I am? He's like, yeah, oh, I've got an event on. I heard you do photography. Because somebody I know, like Rain or maybe Pete or someone else on the course, he knows a photographer that someone I work with that doesn't go here knows her, and I don't know, it just kind of works out in a weird way. But if I'm not around to meet these people, then I'm just kind of this like entity. So I think showing up was the best thing, and talking about it, yeah.
I think one of the questions that comes out of all of that, and Helen's talked about it a lot, and you've all mentioned it in your own way, is networking. So there's two key bits to that. One is, Robbie at the very beginning talked about you guys as a cohort and how you need a sofa to sleep on.
Yeah.
It comes down to really simple things like that. But so you've got the network of what's around you with your cohort, your student friends, the life you've got here. But also there's that wider network that you've been developing. And Helen, you talked really clearly about this idea of even when you're not actively involved in that area, you still keep a connection, because there'll be a moment when you might need to go back to that, or it might change in a different way and you want to get actively engaged with it. And I think what you just said, Bella, about showing up, literally showing up and being present means you get to meet that person, and they say, can you do this? But I'm also aware that you talked a lot about networking from the point of, I need somebody to do some art for my music production, and then that led to somebody else, and that led to somebody else. So would you be able to talk just briefly about networking? Maybe talk about it also from the perspective of, for some people it feels quite straightforward. For some of you it may be, actually this was quite nerve-wracking. I didn't like doing this. And maybe some tips about how you kept that going and got through that. Who wants to go? Okay, start you, Robbie.
Okay, so in terms of networking, I'm a fairly confident person, but then I remember when I went to one of my first networking event thingies, I was a bit like, oh my god, Jesus, this is intimidating, because you like doubt, am I supposed to be here, what am I doing? But I think maybe if you meet someone that you really like their work, that's usually when I struggle, because it's a complete stranger, it's fine, then I actually kind of know them or their work, I'm like, don't be embarrassing. So I think remembering that everyone is just a human being, no matter who or where or what they are, they're all just a human being, and they all think and have insecurities too. So if you do have, because sometimes you have some balls and stuff, and it is scary, but and there's times where I thought to actually say or ask that, but there's no real harm you can get from it. The worst you can have is no, and a no is just going to build you and make you learn. So I think it's really useful. Also doing like different out of the box things. I remember actually, I didn't do this in the end because I was like, I didn't take my own advice here. But let me get this right. So basically, late night Lycett comes to Birmingham. Joe Lycett, famous artist, comedian, is doing like a big TV show in Birmingham. I was like, okay, I need to get on this. And I was thinking of ways to do out of the box. And we knew where he lived because he lived a few houses down the road from Robbie. My best mate's also called Robbie, who was on the course with me. I'm not talking in the third person, but we knew where he lived basically. And we were both trying to get on it. And I was up to Robbie. I was thinking of just do like a sketch or a print, and just like being like, hey, this is just a little something, I don't know, we'd love to work on the show. I didn't have the balls to do it in the end, but I did get there in the end. I did work on it the next series. But he put that through his letterbox, and then he got called, and he was working on it a few weeks later. So sometimes doing something a bit inventive or outside the box can kind of lead to something. With me, I was just in the pub with the right person. I was like, yes, okay, I can help you out. Also, telling people not, oh, give me this opportunity, but just, I can make your life easier. Because this is a really good piece of advice as well. As someone said, everyone just wants someone to make your life easier. When you're going out and looking for different jobs in the creative sector, if you can find a way to make their life easier, whether it be, it can be really mundane as well as creative. Just being able to, pick up something, think in a way that they're not thinking. There's, think outside the box a bit, basically.
I think it's also completely okay to not necessarily have your network straight away. I definitely didn't think that I'd get in the world of arts and health when I graduated, but my network has kind of expanded through, one, me volunteering, and two, I signed up to some free memberships. So I signed up to London Arts and Health and the Culture and Health Wellbeing Alliance. And every month I get an email sort of newsletter, different events, different networking opportunities, and also job opportunities as well. And I spotted some of the people that were going to these regular webinars or going to the talks. I'd add them on LinkedIn. Sometimes people are often very up for a chat as well. Like, people do enjoy sort of talking about their journey, talking about their process of getting to where they are. So I think trying to get yourselves sort of in the network circles that you're interested in, even if it's just a company or an organisation, sort of keeping tabs of what they're doing and then seeing how you can join from there.
I think for me, a lot of the networking that I did was on Instagram. So I used to send a really long paragraph explaining how passionate I was and how dedicated I would be to working for free and just like being there and learning. But the messages that I send now are about 3 lines long, actually. I just say, hi, my name's Bella. I'm a lighting technician or a photography assistant. I like your work. Do you want to work together? Send. A lot of people don't reply. A lot of people do reply, actually. They're more likely to reply if you're just straight to the point. We're all creative people, we're all really passionate, we're all really dedicated. So I think that's something that kind of goes unsaid, like kind of understood, doesn't need to be mentioned. Because if you're not, then maybe you'll find it a lot more difficult when you do get the job. And when I'm networking in person, I think it's a little difficult sometimes because you get worked up in your head about who somebody is or how many followers they have online. It doesn't matter. It does matter to meet people in person because you can have loads of numbers but not know anybody, they don't know anything about you. And I think the most important thing when you're meeting someone for the first time is to maybe listen and maybe ask more questions and say things about yourself because you want to know who they are, because you want them in your network. Like, don't think about it as like I have to put myself everywhere. Think about what you want that circle to look like, because that's the sort of people that you want to stay around. Nothing is really done alone in the creative industry. Everything is a team job. Like, no exhibition is put by just one curator. It gets approved by a whole board of people. Even on a photography set, like, the photographer's not doing all the work. It's a team of people that are coming together to create something. So if you think about the type of team that you want to be in long term, those are the kind of connections you want to nurture. So when you meet someone you like, maybe you follow up like a week later, just be like, hey, it was really nice to meet you, really interested in the future, like doing something together, maybe catch up for a coffee. Doesn't have to be 3 hours long, half an hour to an hour. Listen to what they're interested in, what they're working in, and maybe find a space within those projects where you can help them as well. And yeah, I'd just say kind of be persistent in a friendly way, just kind of let them know that you're still there and interested. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Should we do some quick questions before we open it up to some questions from you guys? And I was just thinking about some of the things we've got here. Where would you advise students to look for job opportunities? Helen, you just mentioned some. Could you?
So definitely LinkedIn. I remember regularly looking at art jobs on a regular basis. But also, if you find people on LinkedIn that are sort of interested in your field, then chances are they'll also repost different opportunities and things like that as well. Again, like I said, the memberships and signing up to any newsletters that you can. So rather than trawling the internet, you've then sort of got a consistent sort of format of different events, networking opportunities and jobs that are coming up as well.
I think going to events and exhibitions of people's work that you like is really important. I mean, a lot of jobs I've spoken to someone in the back area or in the pub and then been like, I'm really interested in that, and it's led to something. So I think going to places that of interest is really important. Going to private views, important. I think also, what was I thinking? What was it? Let me get back to you. There was a point I had that was up in there, but...
On Instagram, if you're interested in photography opportunities like styling, set design, assisting, even if you want to get into like production or something, I think assisting work on Instagram is a really good option. If you want to look for gallery or more kind of fine art work, Run the Check is a really good account to look at, or arts jobs on Instagram as well. If you're interested in joining like a youth program at a museum or an art gallery, you can actually find them on the website of them. So I think the Welcome Collection has one, the Tate. Pretty much most galleries actually have that. So if you want to do something, just Google it. Most places might actually have a youth collective or some sort of forum. And another one would be just finding people that do the job that you want to do and emailing them and asking them how they got into it and where you could kind of do similar things.
Great.
I'll quickly say one thing because I just remember it.
So it was Instagram, and it was stuff like assisting. There's loads of accounts that give opportunities for things. Instagram's a really good place to get them. Also, if you just follow people who did kind of work that interests you, like even if there's a music video you really liked, you like the lighting, you like the costume, you like the props, find them, get into the credits, search them, get them on Instagram. If they need someone, they're probably going to be like, oh, I'm so busy, I'm just going to put on my story, whoever replies the fastest, that could be a job. So go for that. Then also, if there was like just like an exhibition, or there was a theatre performance, or there was a movie, anything that interests you, if you, this is again saying think outside the box, if you find someone connected to maybe an event that you want to go to that isn't for the public, just email them, try thinking, do things outside the box. People actually are a lot more receptive than you think. I mean, some people will say no, but some people will be like, oh, actually, yeah, maybe a really interesting thing that I've done before, I'll do some pictures for your event if I can go to this or whatever, and that can sometimes get me into doors that usually close, so thinking outside the box.
Great.
Keep passing back to you.
You got your own. It's amazing, I like it. So, there was a quick question about CVs. Do you? I mean, it's interesting because a lot of what you're talking about is LinkedIn, so you've got a profile there anyway. You were talking about Instagram and keeping it short in a way, but actually really direct. Do you use CVs? And if you do, so Bella's going on. Yeah. Robbie?
Yeah, a little bit.
So talk through, I mean, so for what you're doing at the moment, you don't necessarily need a CV other than applying for barista jobs.
I've actually sent, I think, about maybe one CV to a client, and he was just like, oh, I didn't even need to ask you that. It's not really that type of industry in some ways. Some people, when it comes to working with somebody new, I think having a portfolio would be more useful. In that sense, like just for kind of visual creative jobs, the CV is kind of more of a formality, but the portfolio would be more necessary. But no, it's more the networking, I think, for me. Some people use their Instagram accounts as their portfolio. Other people don't really use it at all. Yeah, I think there's no right or wrong.
Would you say that you can have a personal Instagram account, but you might have an Instagram account you use to show what you're doing professionally?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to. Some people don't really draw that line, and it works out fine for them. But in other ways, I think it's good to have some separation between your personal kind of life and your professional life. Yeah.
Yeah. And you use that as a tool, Instagram?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Great. Helen, what would you say in terms of CV?
I think it's a bit of a mix. CV and cover letter if I'm sort of reaching out to somebody new. But for quite a lot of the freelance work, it does then come through recommendations. I also keep on my website as well, I've got a copy of everything, and that's also just useful recall for me to think, right, what sort of skills did I acquire from these jobs that I can showcase and sort of say that I can attribute to the new job. I'd say I use a mix, but on there it's got experience, voluntary, and then sort of talking a little bit of detailed, like brief summary, and adapt it to what you're applying to as well to make it really relevant.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So a CV is useful because there are some projects where they'll need someone with some experience, like a certain amount of credits or whatever, depending on what scale of production you're on. But I think a lot of people really, more important than a CV is who you are, and that's what's really good to go out and meet people, because if they just get a vibe of you're a nice sound person, a lot of these jobs are long hours, so that's the real big win. But in terms of my CV, it's very to the point, lists, the information, but do it in a creative way as well, if that's, your kind of thing. Maybe even inform it with your personal style is a really important one. And I've got a link on my CV, it's got all my credits, some other jobs that have some, crossover appeal. And then with a link to my portfolio, so it's kind of got a bit of both. But I think keeping it to the point, that's a really good point mentioned earlier, because, people's attention spans are, you've got about a minute window, so just do it to the point when it comes to CVs, and you think your CVs you in person.
Before I ask the last question, is there anything that you've noted down before you come here, or things that you thought would be good to say, or is there anything? You don't have to, just wondering. Is there anything?
I think also in terms of the sort of keeping a remembrance of like the community that you built up. For example, I got in touch with somebody last year, which is now my mentor, and she sort of helped me navigate the sort of arts and health path that I'm interested in. When I was at uni, I really wasn't too sure whether I wanted to do a master's or not. And I thought, right, rather than just doing one, I'm going to sit and think about, have a go at the world of work and see whether that's sort of what I'm interested in going into. And now through, sort of reconnecting with a person that I used to work with, she's now a mentor, and now I'm sort of navigating the journey of hopefully doing a master's next year in the field of that I'm really interested in. And that master's didn't exist when I graduated, so sometimes if you are thinking about stepping into that, just make sure that you're ready.
What ME is it?
It's in creative health at UCL.
I would just say, like, it's kind of difficult to give like one piece of advice because there's so many kind of different things that you're juggling right now, like where you're at the moment. I would just say kind of stick to what kind of keeps you going. Like for me, I really struggled a lot during the 3 years to stay motivated because I just felt like there's so many barriers that are kind of put in front of you to become something. Like, if I don't pass this, or if I can't, I don't know, you feel like you don't have enough time or resources. But I think the best thing to remember is that there is actually a lot of opportunities out there, and there always will be in the arts. Like, don't worry, AI won't take over every single job that's out there. But just kind of staying positive with that, because it can be really difficult, I think, to not kind of give up when it gets really difficult to kind of juggle everything. I would say remember that people actually want to give out opportunities, and if you don't feel like you can do it all by yourself, someone else can definitely help you. I got a lot of support from the tutors throughout the last 3 years, and I think that was really useful for me in terms of the longevity of the work that I'm doing.
So I think I've stressed the main points, saying yes, think outside the box, utilising the space, the tutors. These are all really important things, but then on top of that, nurturing the connections that you're making, and also understanding that there's loads of great stuff here, but also you are in London. There are things within your fingertips that you can go out and do, and think outside the box is the main thing.
So the last question is, do you like what you're doing?
I do. I do. I love what I'm doing because every day is different. It's utilising all different skill sets. I'm still learning, which I think is a really important thing. Being somewhere where not every day is the same, and you're meeting people, and it's a bit of a whirlwind in terms of juggling freelance stuff. It can be a lot, but it's really rewarding. I'm kind of seeing the rewarding sides now that I've been doing the TV film thing specifically for 2 years now, so I'm getting to the point where I can calmly be a bit more confident and say no to some things and ask for more with other things. Put the time in, and
I love what I'm doing and where I'm at. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, looking back at the time, I necessarily thought that it would all link. It's kind of been a bit of a teaching assistant to working in an events and an outdoor centre to working in creative health. But like looking back at it, it all makes sense and it all interweaves together. And I don't necessarily think you need to know what's next. Sort of loving what you're doing and where you're at is really good. I remember people saying to me, well, are you going to like go to events management or what's sort of next for you? And it's totally okay not to know and to just enjoy where you're at, build up the skills that you're interested in. And if there is a job that you're really interested in the future, have a look at the job spec and see, right, these are the skills that I need to try and get to. But yeah.
I really like what I do as well. I think it has its kind of pros and cons as well. Like, you get to travel for work, you work with new people all the time. You can pick when you work. I mean, it's up to you if you want to do a job or not. And I think the kind of cons would be if you're not ready for the kind of the responsibility of dealing with everything, kind of your finances, your invoices, that kind of making sure you have another job coming up. And that's something to consider before going into freelance work. But I do still enjoy it, even though there's moments that are difficult. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So, I think you've given us so much kind of really direct personal experience, and you all love what you do, which is really great. That's fantastic. And I think there's lots in there that we can kind of work with, and everybody else can kind of take from that in terms of where they're at. So it's really directly relatable, your experience. So we're at a point where you guys might have taken some notes, or you might be interested in some of the things or the pathways that each of these people are involved in. Are there any direct questions or questions that you've got? Yes.
Yeah, I'm really, so it's for Robbie, I'm really interested in the props and TV film industry. So I was wondering what you would
I think what they want you to do is ask a question in that way. So you're on this, they can actually hear you when it's on the film.
So I'm interested in props making, film industry, TV industry. So I was wondering what your journey into that industry looked like and how did you get there?
How did I get in there? Okay, so how I got in there, first thing off, I mean, I had to hustle just to get one day free experience. I was emailing people just on different TV shows. TV shows I liked, and also TV shows that geographically weren't too far from it. So Great British Menu is filmed in Stratford-upon-Avon, which is like a 20-minute train from Birmingham. So I actually think I accidentally got through to someone. It's not really because it's just to get a 3 days work experience, but it is the way it is in that industry in particular. And I got through to someone who was actually covering for the production manager, and I was like, oh yeah, I've spoken about having a day placement at work. Oh, okay, I can't know anything about it. I was like, yeah, he said to him, this is maybe next week. She's like, okay, we'll come to the studio next week then, I suppose, We had a little chat on the phone. I think the chat was kind of to get a feel of like, is this someone that like is, sound crazy, I mean, God knows what they're about. But I did the 1 day experience, and then by the end of the day, I just had to get the balls and go to and be like, I really enjoyed today. The crew were really great. I would love to do more work on this. Is there any more work? And at first she's like, we haven't got anything on the production team, but we actually on-screen waiters. And I was like, yeah, go on, let's go for it. I think it'd be completely irrelevant to what I wanted to do, but it got a foot through the door. And then obviously after I was there and I was like mates with the crew, then they were like, oh, actually there are you know, things did come up, and then I was on the production crew for it, and then that job leads to another job, leads to another job. So I think that's a really good example of just saying yes and going for it. If it doesn't seem directly relevant, you know, it's a foot in the door, and then, you know, you will get further and further into it. And yeah, is that answered? Okay.
Thanks, Robbie.
Also the niche though, I need to stress the niche thing. Like also driving, just being like completely technical about things. If you want to work in props or art department, driving is a really big one because that's something a lot of like creative people maybe haven't got that. So if you can drive, that's a real win, that's a tick. And also if you want to work in props and in that kind of, I know, yeah, I only learned to drive like a year ago. So I was like, if I want to work in this, I need to have wheels. And it has helped. And I'm driving vans and stuff. I might be driving vans to Amsterdam next week, which I'm starting. That's props for sure. But you'd be surprised. Oh god, he's seen too much. But yeah, it happens now.
We've got a question that was online, so they were asking, it's quite specific actually, how do you think AI will affect your career given the current status with how it's progressing? I mean, Bella's actually just answered the question earlier, didn't you? But do you...
Well, it won't take everything.
It won't take everything, but how do you think it's affecting your work at the moment?
What, and just like the art world in general?
Well, maybe from your experience of what you're seeing, because AI in terms of lighting and photography is a major component now, isn't it?
I mean, everyone saw the H&M campaign, right? I don't know, have you guys seen the H&M models, AI model campaign? Yeah. I mean, there's not really knowing where it's going to go exactly. I do think at the end of the day, people are still going to appreciate like man-made artwork and doing things in real life. I don't know how to answer that question. I think when it comes to doing things like exhibitions, a lot of people do actually use AI to write their blogs and all of that stuff. I do think it's still worth learning how to do it yourself. But I do think AI is going to inevitably kind of find its way into most jobs as like a maybe helper instead of a kind of main role in the job.
I'm not too sure how much it will sort of go into arts and health. I'm sure it will do in certain aspects, but art definitely is a tool for distraction, and especially in the healthcare settings and spaces that I work in, having that human-to-human contact and understanding what they're going through and taking the time to sort of understand their process. And so, for example, at Horatio's Garden, working with spinal injuries patients, I was helping with their fine motor skills. So a lot of the workshops would be based around making them feel better in their well-being. So I'm not entirely sure how AI might go into that.
Yeah, so at uni my interests were physically making environments and making videos, and kind of what did kind of encourage me to go more to physically making than the video was kind of a fear that, you know, stuff like this could take over your jobs. It's a fearful thing, but I think when something is feared, maybe it's also good to try and get your head around it, maybe utilising it, finding a way to harness something unfamiliar. You know, you're at the forefront of it at least. You know, 5 or 10 years from now, there won't be people that are just so used to using it. It is like, you know, in the initial steps now. So it might be a good idea to, play around with it. That is freaking me out as well, so I don't know. So, hypocrite.
Thank you.
The thing is with AI is that it's only using things that already exist. Whereas with creative mind, it's things that haven't happened yet. So you being creative and thinking about things original, AI can't do that really. So it's only using things that already exist to make something. So you've got that asset about you, haven't you?
Well, that is weird, isn't it? Going back to the CVs, because you all sort of answer differently, because you all got different experiences, like Bella, you sort of just use Instagram, Helen, you sort of had your DBS and things, you're working more in that sector, and like you had sort of all the different experiences. So I sort of was like applying all summer for like things on art jobs and stuff like that. I didn't get anything. So I was just sort of wondering sort of like what experiences they're looking for on CVs and how, like, what they're looking for on Instagram and like what they're actually looking for in these cover letters, because like all of the galleries and jobs I'm applying for are all different.
I've got an idea
Robbie's
for
got
this.
an idea.
Yeah, okay. I've had this as well, and it's demoralising when you're trying and you're applying, like, what more can I do? And my advice for that would be, if you want an opportunity, there's going to be hundreds, maybe thousands of people applying for these roles. I'd figure out what it is you like or want to do, and maybe even try and make the opportunity yourself. Be like, look, I love this gallery, I love this whatever. Would I be able to maybe shadow or have a trainee position in this thing? That's what I did with Late Night Lycett. I got talking to the British manager and was like, because they were like talking about like, you know, the departments going over all this stuff, and I was like, I could do this, I could be of help with this, and kind of just invented the job. So if rather than being one of thousands of people applying for a job, and it sounds a bit mental, sometimes you have to be a bit mental to get things. So outside the box, just say, look, I could do this, this could be great, you know, I could help you, this is how I could help, you know, rather than just saying, I'll be. Also, putting in terms of what you want on a CV, I think I am really, like, you know, passionate, I'm going to work really hard, like, it's one thing. Then putting actual, like, skill set, like, loads of people probably are passionate and would work hard, and there is a certain level, but can you, like, you know, do this specific thing? Having, like, hard skills as well as soft skills, I'd say is really important. And then, yeah, maybe the way. Also, I feel like sometimes stuff like this, you know, having a chat with someone in person, like these people who probably have the power to give these opportunities are super busy, and they've probably got hundreds of emails coming in. So if you could find a way to just have a chat with them, that's really useful. So yeah, concise, hard skills on CV, and yeah, in person. My experience.
I can definitely relate to that as well. Having sort of being in the loop of not enough experience, but you then want the job to get the experience, and that kind of loop. And yeah, it can be quite demoralising at times. I think that's actually when I've took on more voluntary work. So I've had a paid job, but I've taken on voluntary work directly in some of the roles that I'm interested in. And then I've got that experience through there, and then the network opportunities through that. And yeah, and in terms of the CV as well, even if it's might be like I'm a digital assistant for a conference that is happening, but it's like within the sector that you're interested in. I think building up experience through that. For example, I love working in events, so like set up your own events or set up an exhibition yourself. So yeah, sort of taking in initiative. Seeing some of the skills that might be in the job spec and sort of showcasing it in a different way. But to be honest, definitely a lot of the experience that I've gained has been through additional voluntary stuff that's then led into other stuff. Yeah.
There's another question here online. It's a really interesting question, and I'm going to read it word for word because see what you think of this. Will the feeling of the need to be up to speed with your peers ever go away? That's a really great question.
I'd love to ask them up to speed and exactly what way.
Yeah. I mean, is that something that others, do you relate? Do you get a sense of that question? The need to feel like you're up to speed with your peers, people around you? Is that? might be quite specific for some.
Up to speed in which way?
Well, I think what they're trying to say is the feeling of the need to be up to speed with your peers. So that thing, because you're in this world where you're trying to get a job, there's somebody else that might be out there that in your mind can do it better than you. Or, you know, so your peers can be anything, can't it? But in your world, there's potentially a myriad of people out there that can do what you can do. Do you ever think about that? Or is it just like, actually, I just put that to one side, this is what I do and I get on with it?
Yeah, it's a funny one that. I think, you know, there is power in connection and people and, you know, having groups of people, also finding your tribe, finding people that like the same things as you, into the same things as you. This is how a lot of leads to a lot of jobs. But I think you also do kind of have to focus on just what you're doing, but then also at the same time, it can be really beneficial to have that network. Yeah, it's a funny one that.
I mean, Bella, the question that we just had online is this: the feeling of the need to be up to speed with your peers, will that ever go away? I mean, you work in an area that's sort of changing all the time, and your skill set has grown kind of massively from a year ago, 6 months ago.
I think I'm actually getting to a point now where I don't really compare myself with other people. I think it takes a while to kind of accept that there's not really, like, there is no exact timeline that kind of puts you at a point where you're behind. That's kind of more of a personal thing. Like, you're always going to have that with yourself. Like, I think it's positive to always want more than what you have, but I also think it's really good to kind of sit back and really appreciate like the progress that you've made. And that's something that for me I think happened without noticing, because I had a lot of personal things happening to me that kind of blinded me in terms of, you know, the progress and like where I was in my career. Like, for example, like the first magazine shoot that I did was a year ago now, and I was at Sony Entertainment Studios, and it felt really sick, and I was in the ground floor, just sat on this like really nice sofa I've never sat on before, and I was just looking up at all the lights, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I might be getting evicted. I just couldn't really believe that like I was there, like my career looked in a certain way, and that my personal life wasn't really matching up to that, and that, you know, I'd have a shoot with a really big client, and I'd be late to my own house because TFL just didn't run on time. How am I still taking the train? Like, how does that work out? So I think it's more about kind of realising it has nothing to do with anyone else. Like, most things that would make you happy might not actually make someone else happy, and it's not really part of the question, like where somebody else is. You can compare yourself, like what you want, but it won't really put you anywhere closer unless it motivates you to kind of keep doing it. Like, the good thing about comparing yourself to someone is the realization that if they've done it, you can do it as well. And it sounds very like self-helpy, very positive, but that actually is the reality. Like, once upon a time, everyone that knows something now didn't know how to do it at one point. So I think just kind of remembering that it's not really about anybody else kind of centers you a little bit more.
I think, advocate for yourself, and put yourself in situations that don't really put you in competition with people, but see them more as I can learn these skills from them, more working collaboratively, I guess, and that's what links and is so great about this course as well, is the collaboration. So I say I don't really see people as peers, it's more a collective of people that have varying experience that I can then say, right, actually, that's an area of interest that I'm keen to broaden myself in, but yeah, advocate for yourself.
Heather, did you have a question? I saw your hand go up. No? Is there any? Have you got a question? Ah, great.
Hi, my name is Shamit Kalanda. I studied here as well. I did content media, graduated 2023. So I didn't hear anything about all the societies was, inside the university that there are so many opportunities. So I would like to find out from you guys, have you ever used like We Network or the alumni event or big idea competition, that sort of competition is happening inside the university? I've been using that. I'm still working with the university as an alumni, and I won the competition from Big Idea competition, and I did participate in so many events and working culture program. They took me abroad. I was a photographer, videographer with them. So I'm still working as how I go along. I'll come out Russian company. So have you ever used, or do you know anything about Big Idea competition or Youth Network or any alumni events? Sort of thing. So if you have done that, please.
I mean, I think for Helen and Robbie, some of those things are kind of quite new. So they might not have been around at uni when these things were being developed. But I think Bella's
that will
probably...
be great for them.
For me, I did actually get a lot of opportunities through Rain, kind of sending things out. I did have a We Network account, and I did actually get some opportunities that were relevant. May not have gotten them, been selected to do the job, but it was good to see what was out there. I think sometimes you can get really caught up in just having to apply, but it can be really good just to see what people are looking for in general. I'm trying to think.
I mean, the difficulty is how often people look at and take note of the kind of the opportunities that we send out. So I think, like the global opportunities,
I've been
which is really amazing.
Conference,
I mean,
they do every year, 3 times.
Yeah, Cece went to China last summer to
people
do
go
that.
to Nepal,
You just have to pay £100 and enter everything for the whole week. They will provide everything. Accommodations, they take you to different places, different alumni events, and you get to know so many different people. And I've been making big networks, that's how I get to know so many people.
What's that called again?
One is called Working Culture.
Working culture.
Working Culture. Other one is called We Network. They give you money to start up your own business. If you have idea, you can bring up any idea to the competition. Even if you fail from that, doesn't matter. You
What
make
was
a big
that called,
network.
the second one?
The We Network.
The We Network.
Yeah.
It was engaged.
And the Big Idea competition.
Yeah, the big deal was something I regretted not doing.
Oh, I did it so.
Yeah, one of the main designers that I work with, he did the big idea before he graduated, and he got a lot of funding that supported continuing his work after university. So I would genuinely really recommend
What was it he did?
the big idea.
What was it?
He did it was for his clothing brand, so he just pitched his clothing brand basically.
Well, we've got the Ignite Fund as well.
And
we're
that
trying
as
to
well,
get
yeah.
people to
Yeah.
kind of connect with. But again, it's like picking up those opportunities, and I think that the global networking one is really interesting because you do that not while you're studying, not in term time, but it will be over the Christmas period or the Easter period or perhaps in June. So it will fit in around your studies as well, and it gives you so many opportunities.
Even they can join now, even after the uni, they can join after 3 years the UK program.
Yeah.
They take to different places around the UK for 5 days. So
It's good to know.
Yeah. So please ask me if anything you need to know.
Has anyone applied to any of those things?
Oh, brilliant.
Has anyone got funding? You went to Hong Kong. Anyone else? What did you get?
I'm going to Egypt in January.
You're going to Egypt in January through that same scheme.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I was going to go to Toronto, to do the exchange there
Right.
as well. But yeah, just couldn't afford it in the end
Right.
with funding. But
Okay.
it was really easy process.
To
So
apply.
I recommend it if you can.
So you went. When did you go to Hong
In
Kong?
September.
They take to so many different countries. Trust me, it's very useful, and you make a big network around them, and you never know who you bump into. So
Good experience.
yeah.
There you go. read the Blackboard announcements.
Exactly. And I have to say one thing. Only I was the one who selected out of 60 students.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is one of the things we say about the Ignite Fund and other funds that are out there. There's a lot of people that go, oh, well, I'll never get that. But actually, nobody's picking it up, or half of them are going, I'll never get it, and they don't apply. So these are really good opportunities. And things like some of those, the seed money that they can put into an entrepreneurial idea. Some people have used it directly to fund their degree show work. There might be others that are thinking about something that might take them somewhere. You were thinking about it, weren't you, over a upcycling project with T-shirts for the print room, but
Yeah.
just time wasn't
Yeah,
on your
didn't
side.
really happen.
But it's worth kind of considering all of that. And when you see them, and you kind of glance at it and go, oh, I'll look at it later. No, just look at it then, because it might just grab you at that moment, and then you're doing it. I imagine both for Helen and Robbie, that might be true for you. I know we're talking about stuff within the university, but there might be times when you just slumped in your chair at the end of the evening and go, oh, I can't be asked. And then if you look a little bit further, it might just take you somewhere.
Yeah, a big thing I would say about this, it depends on your personal personality, how you are. I have a habit sometimes being over-perfectionistic with doing applications or anything. And the biggest thing that I've changed is being like, you know what, I'm just going to do it, apply for it. Just do it while you see the opportunity. And you can always send it again and make it better, but just don't. Just make sure you do it, because as you said, sometimes these great opportunities, you overthink it. Just do it.
One thing, can I just say one thing about the applying for the going abroad? Sometimes it looks like you wouldn't be able to do it because it will clash with your assessment or your presentation deadlines. Talk to your tutors, because there's always ways that we could sort of get you to hand in stuff early so that you can go abroad.
Yeah, don't let us get in the way of a really great opportunity. And I think that thing that you said, Robbie, which is really so true, isn't it? That sometimes we don't put in an application or we don't send that out because somewhere there's a doubt in our mind that, oh, I haven't done, no, this isn't the best I could have done. Somebody will have done this better. But you just don't know that. And it's much better just to, as you said, get it done.
Yeah.
Put the application in. You haven't lost anything. And in fact, I think in producing it, in making the application, you've probably got a little bit more experience about it, and then the next time. One of the things we haven't talked about is whether or not you guys have actually applied for residencies, grants, those sorts of things. I mean, some of that's quite daunting because you could be looking at a 20-page document that you have to fill in. You keep going, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that. Have you had to do that? And has that been worthwhile? Have you done any of the grant kind of applications?
So I really quite like the writing and applying things. I don't know why. I've applied for people's ones as well, just because. But then, it can be the thing where you're like, is this good enough? Just do it. But they've been really helpful. So I had, I think I got funding for my degree show from a pool of money. Also researching and asking and looking online on these things, because sometimes there are these amazing things that just people don't know about. And also the good thing is that if not everyone knows about it, it might be not as hard to attain it as you think. And then so I worked with an organisation called the Gap Arts Project. But this came, I was working in hospitality, and I was like, well, okay, you know what, I'm a creative person, so I do a creative job. I need to just go and do it. So I just went to just Googled and researched at arts culture places in Birmingham, and I went into that place and was like, look, I just want to do something creative. Is there any opportunities available? And they were like, oh, actually, yeah, we're going to be having like a resident artist thing that will be on the website in a few weeks. You should apply. So I had that one-on-one talking with them. I think that kind of helped get that situation, and that led to, you know, artist residency of Shakespeare's birthplace. We did a curation scheme. We did, you know, it taught me how to facilitate workshops, how to connect with different communities to make those workshops. So that was like a really, you know, great launch pad for me. So yeah, that's why I'm quite like to go out and speak to people as well, because sometimes I have information that's not online yet.
I think it's a great way to reflect on your practice and where you're kind of at as well. I'd say even if you're really content in the job that you're in, always be looking for what's out there and how you can progress. I know a few people that have had success with the Develop Your Creative Practice grant for the Arts Council. I haven't yet applied yet because you can apply for it. If you get it, then there's a certain amount of time before you can then reapply to it. So sort of picking when you want to apply and use it, have a bit of a think about that. And yeah, I think that's it.
I haven't had much experience doing it. I feel like I'm kind of fresh out of uni at the moment, and I want to take some time to like develop my practice even more. You might feel like you're in a bit of a rush to kind of make something happen as soon as you finish uni with like your art practice itself. For me personally, like I don't think I'm quite ready to do like a master's or residency, just because I want more time with my practice. No deadlines, no pressure, just kind of me and my practice. Might be different for some of you, but yeah, I have applied to one before, and it was abroad. Having a European citizen does help me out when it comes to those kind of applications. It just might involve more kind of legal documents for other people. But I think something that's good to know when you're applying for things like that is to be really comfortable with describing your practice and really kind of knowing what you are trying to do with that, whether it's something medium-based or concept-based, just being able to describe that kind of on the go, even if you meet someone in person, like just to know that's really important. And yeah, that's kind of, I don't have too much advice on that, but that's what I would say.
I think we're almost at the end. There's one question that's come up online. And it's interesting.
Because I want to be really quick.
Yeah, of course.
Just really quickly.
I've just remembered that when you think about bursaries, when it comes to the financial year in April, a lot of these people have money that doesn't get used again next year. So applying around February, March is really good time because there's sometimes pots of money that need to be filled. And then if you're interested in going into props, as you said, you know, using these skills, there's something called screen skills that do, like, they pay for the driving lessons, camera equipment, stuff like that. I got driving lessons paid for me through that, but to get that, probably doing like a screen skills, even if it's like an online course, would probably help you get that. But yeah, I had to mention that.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, great. So the question is, do you have any advice for job stability? The creative industry isn't like a regular 9 to 5 where you're guaranteed pay. So, I mean, it's interesting, that question for you three, because I mean, potentially, and I might be wrong here, but you seem to have a bit more consistency than you do. Robbie, you sound like you're going everywhere, doing everything, but then you always were like that. And Bella, you're kind of trying to find that. I know the last conversation we had, there was a discussion about, you know, somebody's offering you a potential for employment in a way on a more regular basis, but you're like, you've got to guarantee what that is first. So is there anything you can talk about in terms of that idea of being in a world where it isn't just 9 to 5? And some of the moments when you feel like, I wish it was, and other moments when you think, thank God it's not. Yeah, I mean...
From a freelance perspective, I think one of the things that you kind of need to think about in terms of the lack of financial stability is building up some savings. I had a conversation quite recently with the creative director who basically came up to me and was like, I'd love to put you on a retainer. And what that means, like in freelance you have very different forms of contracts. So when you don't have a contract, it's usually your invoices are payable within 30 days is like a standard, right? Some contracts are 90 days, so you might not get paid. You might have done the work, but you won't see the money for another 3 months. That's something that you like financially have to prepare for. So I think that's where savings become a really important part of working as a freelancer and a creative. And it takes time. Like, you have to be understanding that you're not going to be able to save $5,000 in 3 months very easily. So I think definitely that. What was the other part of the question? What parts we do wish were like a 9 to 5. I guess the kind of payment stuff, like you know how much you get paid by the end of the month, that would be nice. But there's also a lot of freedom in getting paid more than you expect to get paid when you work freelance. Another thing with not really having that 9 to 5 aspect is there's not really an HR. So it's important for you to know your rights as a worker, as a freelance worker, and where you are actually like liable to get legal advice and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that would be my short answer.
I think that I really enjoyed sort of starting off on a freelance basis because it felt like I could get involved with a complete like variety of different opportunities. So I'm really happy that I started off freelance and then now I'm in full-time employment at the moment. And with that, the opportunities with that are you can get courses and training and that paid for. So it's not necessarily sort of coming out of your own pot. The downsides to that in that you then don't have as much flexibility in terms of your time and then what you also want to do, and certain contracts then can constrain you from like we don't want you to take on X amount of work outside of your contract. So yeah, there's pros and cons to definitely both.
Yeah, there is pros and cons. I mean, I personally like do something different every day, so it suits me freelance in a sense. There was times at the start of it when I was a bit like, God, you know, work isn't being that regular, and it was quite, you know, freaky. I think in those times you've got to just think, what can I do? And kind of, you know, doing a bit of juggling, you know, put yourself out there saying I can make a poster, I can make artwork, I can do a video, even, you know, I could help run this event, I can help look after the talent for this event, you know, think about all different things that you could do, because they might even lead to work as well. And I think I quite like the working intensely, and then maybe you get like a month off and you can do other things. I just kind of quite like that. I would warn that if you want to get to film and TV, it is like very long hours. And you made a really good point about there is no HR, so you have to kind of, you know, you kind of got to be your own accountant, your own manager, your own, you know, therapist, your own everything in a lot of ways. That's why having community is really important, because when times are tough, you can like lean on and speak and share with like other people that you're with. This is really important, and I've got a bad habit of saying yes too much, and that is definitely when you're starting out. That's really important, but also don't burn yourself out, because I've probably got near it at points and been like, you know, I should have just held back there. Maybe that was one thing too much. At the start of the year, I was doing MasterChef full time, it was like 40-50 hours a week. I was doing a podcast on the Saturday, so I'd like 1 day a week where I was literally doing anything, I was just lying in bed, like, I've got tomorrow, I'm up at 6 a.m, what am I doing? And then I look back on that and I'm like, it's good to take opportunities, but you know, be kind to yourself as well, because you don't want to burn yourself out. So be mindful of that.
Thanks, Rob. I think we can call it a close. I'm going to take advantage of that one of the last things you spoke about was having a bit of legal or employment. So if you have a chance while you're in the third year or any year to kind of listen to someone talk about tax law and ways and intellectual property, would you think that would be quite useful?
Yeah, there was actually last year or this year.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So they all.
So the university does actually have this available to you for free. There are some that are, I think the one that ran this year was in person and you can also attend online. So there's kind of really no reason not to kind of use that because it is really, really useful in the future.
Yeah, we're getting Travis Smith at the moment, and they run an online, it's only an hour and a half, but they talk about what it is to be freelance and what there's tax. Because you're
Keep
well.
your receipts.
Keep your receipts. Have your separate
Just
bank
take
accounts.
pictures of them. You're never going to keep. Well, I'm not never going to physically keep them all. I've tried. It doesn't work. But take a picture. I can remember to do that, and then you can just put it all into a separate album.
So even the boring stuff, it's good to know that. Yeah. I think you've given us so much, it's been really in depth. Your perspective has been amazing, both from Bella's sort of, I think it's unfair to say you recently graduated because actually your work experience and your working life has been going on for a long time in terms of how you've set up your freelance, what you've been interested in doing and your studies. So there's a huge amount of experience there, and the kind of level that you're working now, and people can come and ask you afterwards who the kind of firms, brands, what have you, campaigns you've been working on, they're really quite huge. But I think Helen, the longevity, it's really interesting to hear all of that kind of background that was kind of there when you were at uni. Robbie, you're kind of still there.
Yeah.
But actually just doing it,
Yeah.
and it's been brilliant to hear all of that. So I think I'd like to give you a massive round of applause.